All right, so Grenade by Alan Gratz. We're still in part one, and we've just read pages 10 through 16, but we've met a new character. This is Ray. He's a private in the U.S. Marines. And what this story does that I really like is it uses this term called juxtaposition. And that's where you put two things side by side for the purpose of the effects or the comparing effects that it might have. So, what we're doing is we're seeing Hideki's story and this young Japanese boy versus Ray's story, an American soldier, and how the two kind of run parallel to each other, right? They're going through similar experiences, they're in the same place, it's happening at the same time, but they have two very different perspectives. So, Ray is a U.S. Marine who joined up, tried to join up before he even turned 18, right? But when he did turn 18, he was under the impression, like many U.S. soldiers, that they were going to be fighting in Europe and fighting Hitler and the Nazis because that was what they had heard the most about. But the war in Europe actually ended before the war in the Pacific and Japan and Philippines and that area. So while Japan and Germany fought together and Italy fought together on the same side, it was also kind of separate battles, almost like separate wars within. So he's telling us about how he's coming up onto the shore towards Okinawa. They're finally ready to invade Okinawa. And it's Easter Sunday. They're calling it Love Day. That's the code name of the operation. But it's also April Fool's Day. And he's like, that's not lost on us. We understand the irony in all this. Um, so he's going off to Okinawa for the first time. They've been in this boat for, I think it says weeks. It's just been, yeah, for weeks. He's been stuck there with tanks on a boat, and there's suicide bombers. We've talked about this before. The Japanese kamikaze pilots just trying to kill everyone in sight. And he's talking about how he remembers um, the excitement he felt joining the military, but now he's sick to his stomach from the waves, from fear, from everything, and he's just sitting there counting through his pack, seeing what he has, and then it says, and there were grenades, two of them, and it describes his grenades as well. And I really like this. This is another example of the juxtaposition because we see that both of our main characters are given two grenades. And Hidiki's are like dangerous, these ceramic things that are falling apart, may or may not work. And one of them is intended for the purpose of killing himself. But Ray has actual grenades, like we think about now. They're constructed uniformly, well built, and he knows exactly how much time he has before they're going to go off. He knows that they're safer than what Hideki is. Now, he doesn't know about Hideki's, but he knows that he has safer ones, right? So that's in one pocket. Then in his other pocket, he has this brochure because they wanted to prepare the U.S. soldiers for who they would encounter. And they are not fighting against the people of Okinawa, they're fighting against Japan. Japan is the country that has declared war. And so they're being told, you are not there to kill Okinawans. You're there to fight the Japanese. And you have to know a difference. And so it goes on to explain that the Okinawans are kind of smaller people. They're law abiding, they're peaceful, they're not there to hurt us. Um, but they might not be super friendly at first because they have heard horrible things about us because all they know is what they hear from Japan. And this is where that juxtaposition comes into play because we know that the Okinawans, maybe they were very peaceful people, but the ones in this area are being handed grenades and told to fight, and they are getting that Japanese propaganda. He's trying to learn the language to be able to help with them. And now you have this conversation that all the guys are having, right? About what they're going to experience. So the guy kind of in charge, his buddy, his foxhole buddy, is telling him, don't even worry about it. You just, if you see somebody, don't try and figure out if they're Okinawan or Japanese. You might have to just shoot first to save your own life. And he says, a Jap's a Jap. Now, it's important to know at the beginning of this book, like before chapter one even began, there's like an author's note that talks about how it will use language that was relevant during the war, but is not relevant now. And this is one of those terms. We do not say Jap anymore as we talk about people. It is a racial slur. It's derogatory. At this time, that is what they were called, and that was a commonplace term. So it would have been acceptable for him to say that. It is no longer acceptable nor appropriate to say. So I want to make that very clear. It should not be part of normal everyday vernacular or things you say. So he's telling him, you just shoot anyone, it doesn't matter. But he calls him Majors, which is his last name. A lot of people went by their last names as a nickname. And the other guy says, oh, whoa, that's going to be a problem because the higher rank you are in the military, the more likely you are to be tortured and killed by the enemy because they think you have information. So they're all trying to come up with a nickname for him. And of course, Big John is ever the optimist and so happy, says, let's just see if he lives first, then we'll give him a nickname. So they start getting ready to get off the ship, go out into the beach, and the sergeant tells them, like, when you get off this boat, you just run as fast as you can to save your life, and that's all Ray knows to do, and that's what he's going to do.